So stolen that frame for the ankle. So range of motion back to 0. Then another 10 frames on. That range of motion, and then steal it for the next 10 frames. So I've got up, back to 0, down, back to 0, and then let's do, let me go into world and do a rotate, steal that back to 0, and rotate the other way. So I'm obviously going way beyond what the foot could do, but that will guarantee that you know, going beyond that range, I can make sure that the skinning works. So the animator has got a lot of sort of leeway. Steal that for 0. So I'm going down, that side, that side. We can do, let's just go back to local. Let's do a twist. I mean, the ankle's quite a versatile joint. And 190, twist the other way. And then back to 0. So you get the picture. I've gone through from frame 1, the toe range of motion, the ankle range of motion. Okay. So let's have a look at the skin weighting. So select the geometry, and you will find it under the skin menu, paint skin weights. Okay. And as you can see, the normal view is with the toe joint selected. Black means that that joint has no influence, and as it gets to white, white means it's got full influence, and shades of grey mean that it's kind of diminishing in the way that that joint is influencing the verts. And as you can see, because the toe verts are like a shade of grey, that toe joint is not fully influencing them, and that's why it's the geometry is starting to fall off. Okay. Another way, so in your dialogue, these are all the joints listed that influence the geometry that we skinned. So you can see I've got the left side, the toe, the ankle, and the shin. So you can select them that way, or you can right click, keep it held down, and go to the top and select influence that way. So I generally prefer that way because you're working on the on the kind of model itself. Okay. You've got various ways of painting, which we'll look at shortly. You can also use the colour ramp, which shows you like the colour influence, but I generally prefer the grayscale. It's a lot easier to see. The skin weight tool uses sort of the artisan system within Maya. So if you hold B and left drag, you can control the size of the brush, and if you hold N and left drag, you can control the value that that's painting. Okay, and as you can see, as I increase that, it's changing this value here. Okay, so you can manually do that. If you want a value of 1 and paint, then you can do it either by the this value or N and left drag. Okay. So the main thing with skin weighting is the initial skin weight gives you sort of the best approximation, and I've seen a lot of people in the skin weighting process sort of tiptoe around that initial skin weight, and it takes them ages, and they sort of make no headway into skinning. Okay, so the process that I use, the technique that I use, is almost wade in and paint 100% to the area that you need. Okay, and then you can go in and refine it after that. So let's go to replace. Take it to a value of 1. So I'm going to paint to the joint because I've got it selected and it's blue. Okay, so as you can see, if I go, just keep painting often, keep dragging the brush, and you can see that I've pretty much painted those 100%. All right, and because I've set up the range of motion, it's very easy to see how it's influenced. So you can see now that the toe geometry is nicely affecting that sort of area there. Yes, it looks a little bit ugly there, but we can sort that out. Okay. Now you can also see that as I bend the toe, it's influencing some verts here. Okay. So I can do that a number of ways. I can do that by selecting this as the influence and now painting these 100%. So you can see there's a lot of grey all over the place, and so its influence of the ankle wasn't particularly great. So I'm going to go right up to there. So now that I've painted up sort of these verts 100% to this joint, you can see that now this range of motion is only affecting, if I select influence, is now only affecting those. So you get a lot more stability with your skin weighting, and it looks a lot better. Okay. Push through to the range of motion, and you can see you know, the last bit is if I select the shin, it's hardly influencing this front section. So just as a temporary measure to begin with, you can decrease the brush if you're getting into tight areas. Let's just do these 100%. Okay. So that's the initial stage of, and as you can see, that's now that I painted these verts 100% to the shin, it's a lot more solid. Yep, don't look that great at the moment, but now we can start refining. Okay, so that's the first process, is just blocking out 100%. Now what we need to do is deal with the sort of nice blending. Okay. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can use the smooth option, which smooth can be a little bit unpredictable in that it sort of distributes the smoothing across joints that you don't need. But if you are to use smoothing, take the opacity down to 0.1, 0.2, something like that, and I'm going to now blend across. And as you can see, with a low opacity, I always think paint little and often, and it's much more controllable. So you can see it's starting to soften that a little bit. Okay, go the other way and start smoothing out from the ankle, and you will see that it's starting to blend the other way. Okay, so that's smoothing. Just be careful that it is a little bit unpredictable. Okay, what I tend to use is the add mode. I find this again, it's a technique that I've just got into the habit of using. I have the opacity at full, but I take the value down to 0.005, something like that. Okay. So, for example, an add means that you're building on the skin weighting, so you can keep painting, and it will keep adding that value to the weights. All right. So let's say, for example, I want to finesse this section, and I'm just finding that these verts are a little bit too influenced by the toe. When I bend the toe up, these verts are kind of going too far in. So I need to paint more influence to the ankle. I've got the ankle selected, it's blue. So opacity 1, value really low, and you can change the brush size. If you find that the value is too high, and when you paint, you get a massive jump, and that you can undo it, Control Z. So I find that take the value down until it's jumps into manageable steps. So you can either lower the value by that slider or use your N. So I'm going to take it right down to 0.07, paint it. So as you can see, it's jumping a little bit at a time, and that's a lot more manageable. And there, just the same process, paint little and often. And because it's such a low value, it just becomes so much easier to control. Okay, and use your range of motion. So keep painting. You know, if you've got, this is the reason why you've got good edge loops, is that you can almost use the lines of your edge loops to sculpt the decent shapes. Okay, so I'm going to bring these back as well, a bit more influence to the ankle, just to kind of not have them stretch so much. And because it's such a low weight, let's bring these a little bit more to the ankle. We should feel they were stretching. So you can see already when I rotate it, I was just getting a little bit of movement there. That's sort of the smooth kind of artifact. So I tend not to use the smooth a lot. And the beauty of skinning is getting sort of nice natural deformation. So you can go a little bit further so that it influences a little bit more. Because I've got such a low value, you can see that just painting a little bit just adds that extra level of sort of blend and softness across. Okay. And there we go. So you can see now that, you know, quite a full range of motion. That's starting to look a lot more solid, and the geometry is following the joint a lot better. Okay. So I've got a little bit of motion there, so let's paint that to the ankle. So you're constantly checking. You know, if you wanted these to be a a little bit less influence, keep painting on to the ankle. So you can just work your way around. Okay. Or if you wanted to bring a little bit of movement to these verts, select the ankle, and again, because you've got a really low value, just a quick once in the paint and you get a range of motion. Okay, if that's too much, go back to the ankle, take your influence down a little bit and just paint so that the influence is very, very small, but just looks a lot natural. Okay, there we go. Just check going down. Obviously, you'll never get that range of motion, but that seems to be working okay. And often it's it is a case of compromising, making sure that it sort of works well predominantly in the main bend, which for the toe is this one, but it's also working well for the other bends as well. So let's bring a little bit more stability there. See how it influences the main toe bend. No, that looks okay. Just so that we've got a nice fluid distortion. Okay, great. Now onto the ankle. So as you can see, the ankle, because I painted 100%, is hardly influencing, if at all, these verts here. And this is these verts here are quite sharply kind of bending in. So these verts are 100% to the ankle. Okay, so again, using the add technique, I'm going to select the chin and again change your brush size. Just start bringing in the influence of the shin, and as you can see, let's do it a little bit more. So there's not that massive undercutting. Okay. Same for the back. I mean, that's not too bad, but just let's do a little bit of painting because I've got really low values. Then it's very easy to control. Low values, paint little values, little and often. Okay, so you can see that's just stopping that undercutting a lot. Okay, and the other side with the ankle, you can see as I painted it, the ankle had no influence on these at all. So if I just want a little bit of movement, take the brush down a little bit and just give it one or two sort of strokes just to add a little bit of a range. Sort of, the more softer the skin weighting, and it influences a few areas. Then it just looks a lot better. It looks a lot more natural. Okay. And if you want to do the same, let's say it is affecting the. So this is the rim of the boot. So you just get in a nice range of motion. Let's go back to the shin and sort of stabilize that a little bit. And if you want to come down a little bit more, you know, you can gradually filter off, because you're on such a low value. It's just dampening that range of motion. Okay, probably too much, so let's just bring it back. Okay, and there you get the picture. So it's all a case of I always use the add, a very low value, and paint little and paint often.